Progressive Christian devotional in 3 minutes or less. I have to admit that I still occasionally have fantasies about getting revenge on those who have hurt me. Mainly, they revolve around getting certain people fired and having their academic careers destroyed in the same way mine was. But those remain just that, fantasy, and for good reason. Revenge doesn't equate to justice. In my case, justice would have been to still have the career I desired and deserved. But here's what I appreciate about the Psalms. They don't hold anything back. The psalmist is talking about enemies and those who seek to hurt them, and some of the language used is one of revenge. And yet, it is also one of letting God get revenge. I believe in advocating for justice, and I also know that it is too easy to confuse our notions of justice with revenge. So instead of acting on my impulse for revenge, I remind myself that God, who is a God of love, mercy, and justice, has got my back. Now, I'm not sure God acts in the violent ways described in this psalm, but again, I appreciate how the psalmist is just being honest and blunt about their emotions, while also letting God be the one to act. In a similar way, what if we come to God in the fullness of our pain and suffering, and yes, even with our revengeful fantasies? God can and does take on our suffering and pain, and while I don't think God will fulfill our fantasies of revenge, thankfully, because the reality is, we all probably are the stars of quite a few revenge dreams, I do believe God is working within our hurt and suffering. Prayer. God, help us to come to you with our whole selves, and instead of taking revenge into our own hands, to trust that you are working to bring liberation and freedom to us all. Thank you because you are more loving and just than we can imagine, and yet you still understand when our pain causes us to desire revenge over justice. Reflection. What if we viewed this psalm not as some sort of incantation for revenge, but as an example of trusting God with all of who we are, including the parts that cry out for revenge?